Welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about Piranha. How are you, Meg?
Good. I liked your piranha. I'm good. I'm not swimming with piranhas right now, so life's good.
You recently, well, not recently, this is months ago now, but you went to the Donner Party, place. And what do they call it? Is it a monument? Is it a location? What's the official term?
Yeah, so this is typical me. So Luke had a conference and he's like, it's in this part of California, and like all the little like lights and sounds went off in my head, and I was like, yeah, I want to go there. And I went and Google mapped it, and the resort we were staying in was just a few miles from Donner Pass. And I was like, I knew it. And I was just like, yes, we're going there. I've always just been fascinated with the Donner Party. I'd watched a documentary when I was a teenager, and I just recently, well, this was like over Labor Day weekend, so it was a couple months ago, but I read, when I went out there, I started reading In Different Stars Above, which is an amazing book. It's just absolutely fascinating. It's about the whole Donner Party experience of what happened, why it happened, and really the humanity of the people, and you really get to know these people, and it was just an amazing novel. I shouldn't say novel, it's nonfiction, obviously. But being out there and getting to go, there is like a little museum, and there is a monument that was put up, I think, in like the 19 teens. So it's a very old monument. The museum really kind of buries the lead about what actually happened out there. I mean, but what was so cool is they had actual artifacts. So they had a watch, they had a comb, they had all these things that had been left behind at where the tragedy occurred. And I'm talking assuming everybody knows about the Donner Party.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell listeners the only thing that I really know is cannibalism. Right. And is that accurate?
Yes. It's fascinating, and I really encourage people to check out In Different Stars Above. Also, the guys on last podcast on the left, like right after I finished that book, they did like a 3-part series on the Donner Party. I think it's a 3-part series. That was amazing too, if you guys want to listen to that. But basically it's about these doomed settlers, and I've always really been like interested in that part of American history too, about people who like would just get in those covered wagons and go across the prairie. I would love to someday write a novel that takes place in that time period, because I think, obviously with the Donner Party, it's certainly rife for horror. But yeah, basically they get stranded in the mountains, and what's so fascinating to me is they end up cannibalizing the dead bodies, and then also some of them actually do murder some people to eat them. But they actually weren't starving yet, but they didn't know they weren't starving yet. And so they made the decision, even though they probably could have gone another 2 weeks without eating.
So I know the fact from The Ring that you can live without food for 7 days, but is that not a fact? Like, how long can you live without food?
You can live without food for like 21 days or something like that. You can only go without water for 7 days, I think. So, and obviously they had plenty of snow, so they had plenty of water. But what happened was they were freezing to death, and they thought they were starving to death, which, let's be honest, if I went 2 or 3 days, I'd probably start looking at people like cartoon characters, like looking at them like a drumstick. So
that's exactly what came to mind.
I don't judge. But I mean, it's pretty horrific, where these were people's family members, and these were the choices they had to make, they felt at the time. And really, yeah, who's to judge, especially when you think about the limited knowledge that these people had. And also, not just the cannibalism is fascinating, but also just the fight for survival, and just really the book that I mentioned, it kind of takes it from the perspective of this one particular woman, but I love just the history of it, but obviously because I love the macabre, I enjoy that part of it too. And I guess I'm always as you guys know, I'm always fascinated by the psychology behind the choices we make. And, at what point do you go, yeah, Kelly's dead, I'm going to eat her arm?
Yeah. And which part of if you had to eat one of my tattoos, which tattoo would you eat?
That beautiful Bates Motel one.
It's the meatiest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I mean, the color would make it really fun.
I think I would eat your Lydia tattoo.
Oh, that's sweet.
I mean, if we had to. Yeah. I'm just saying tattoo because it's, at least there's some decorative quality.
I mean, there's an aesthetic quality to eating. You can't just...
If you're still listening, we're going to talk about flesh eaters, piranhas. Meg, have you seen this movie before?
Yeah, so here's the thing about Piranha. I watched it one time as a kid, and I would say it was one of the first times that I felt shame for liking horror and wanting to watch a horror movie. I had seen the cover, and for some reason I felt guilty about wanting to see it, and I felt guilty about enjoying it.
Really?
And so that's kind of always like been a little bit a part of me, is like that feeling of like I felt when I was watching it by myself like I was doing something wrong, or like I don't know if there had been something that had happened around that time where somebody made fun of me because I liked horror, or I was just getting older and becoming more cognizant of kind of what was going on around me. But it was one of the first times I was like, I felt kind of bad for enjoying the gore.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Now, can you give us some facts about this movie?
Sure. So it's considered a horror comedy. It's directed by Joe Dante, who did Gremlins and The Howling.
And he did The Burbs too, right?
Oh, yeah. Did he? Yeah, you're right. Yep, you're right. So he definitely has that sort of like comedic edge, and that's something definitely you guys probably know about me, as I like horror with a little bit of comedy in it. And what was kind of fascinating.
Wait, what year was this?
Oh, I'm sorry. It came out in August 1978. And there have been sequels as well as remakes. There was the Piranha 3D that came out in the 2000s, I think, starring Elizabeth Shue and Adam Scott. And 3DD, apparently. I did not see that. It's got like a girl on the cover.
Or Double D.
Get it, Double D. But here's an interesting trivia fact for you. The two stars of this movie, Bradford, let's see, what's his name? He plays Paul Grogan. So he's like the, how would you describe him? He's the alcoholic single father that's living in the woods and off the, what do you call it? Off the grid. Yeah. Played by Bradford Dillman. And then the main character, who plays Maggie, Heather Menzies-Urich, who is actually from Sound of Music. Are you a Sound of Music fan?
I am.
Okay. She was one of the girls. I have to admit, I've seen Sound of Music a couple times, but it's just, I don't know much about it. But what's fascinating is they literally died 2 weeks apart from each other. Recently, which is kind of weird. So
that is weird.
She died last Christmas Eve, and he died about 2 weeks later. And I was just like, that's kind of creepy.
R.I.P. you guys.
Yeah, so that was kind of like an odd thing. And then the other star of this movie, Kevin McCarthy, I recognized him right away, even though he's much older. I was like, he's somebody I've seen in black and white movies, and I was right. He's the older guy. Do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah. He dies in the movie, but he was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Twilight Zone episodes and things like that. And did you recognize the older woman in this movie?
Yes. She's from Black Sunday, right?
Yeah, so that was very cool. That was very cool to recognize her and know I certainly wouldn't have known that as a kid, that she was sort of a horror queen.
Yeah. No, I have never seen this movie. And again, I was pleasantly surprised. The something that it reminded me of is that fish are real, you guys.
PSA.
Yeah, like there's musky attacks in Lake Superior, which I live near. And like the past couple years, there have been musky attacks where like people have gotten chunks of their legs or feet bitten out. It's like real.
There's a young girl. She got her leg really messed up by a musky. So you guys don't laugh.
How do you feel about swimming in lakes?
I mean, I'm definitely more of a high maintenance like pool girl, but I mean, I don't know. I don't really like the seaweed touching me and leeches, and I don't know.
I don't like leeches at all, but I had this swimsuit, and I've probably told this story before. I had this swimsuit with like these tie up sides, like bows, and I was like in third or fourth grade, and I was swimming in a lake, and all of a sudden, all these fish started biting at my bows because they were like strings, and they must have looked like worms or something, and it was like a horror movie, and I was screaming, and I got out of the water, and I never went in that lake again, and I never wore that swimsuit again either, I don't think, but it was terrifying.
No, that's not okay. I Here's the thing with and this is more ocean, but we don't know what's down there. Like we only how much of percent of the ocean have we explored? Like, and then we've all seen like now that have started to find other creatures down there. There are some fucked up creatures down there, and with lakes too. I'm not convinced we know everything. I'm not saying Nessie is in there, but I'm saying I'm not convinced we know everything that's in there.
No, I agree. Okay, speaking of these little creatures, I love the puppets so much. They're so cute. And like the one peeking around the corner in the beginning.
I was not expecting that. I forgot that. And so when it happened, I was like, what? And can I say, I knew I was going to like this movie and I was like watching it and I was thinking, Kelly must be watching this and going, this is the most Meg thing I've ever seen. When she was about to get on the airplane and she could not find her ticket. And I was like, I love her because that's exactly me literally every time.
That's hilarious. Because, yeah, you'll put things down or away and then you just can't find it again.
I'm always like, Kelly, where did I put my plane ticket? I can't find it. So I loved that this movie it's in 1978, but the concept of the movie is this is a woman and she's going there because she has a job. She has a job to do. She's not there to like visit some boyfriend or whatever. The concept of the movie is she's got a job to do, and even though she can't remember where her plane ticket is, she still is competent, and she says to her boss, like, of course I have this. Like, don't worry about it. So I love that.
I love it too. And I wrote down, like, it's an actual female scientist. And yeah, she knows what she's doing. Now, the other thing this movie reminded me of is your story of the pit, because it's about swimming in an old abandoned mine pit that's filled up with water, like we really have here in Minnesota. And there's something lurking beneath. I don't know if you want to give anything away, but tell people where to find it at least.
Yeah, so the pit is in my short story collection, Twisted Reveries, and it's also was produced for audio by the Wicked Library if you want to listen to it, and it's read by a talented voice actress that works for the No Sleep podcast. But yeah, it's funny when you see things like this because it's like I know I watched this as a child, so you wonder like how much of it got into my DNA and like now that I produce horror and I write horror, it's like fun to sort of go back and see like maybe where some of these ideas sort of like the kernel of them began.
I love it. I can't remember what happened, but I wrote this down. I like how they knocked some guy out and then just left him. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. This movie's brutal.
And then the guy with his feet in the water. And, we just know that things are lurking in the water. But it reminded me that people actually get pedicures where fish eat dead skin off. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, like in Asia somewhere. I have seen that. I mean, maybe they do it over here now, but I think it started over there. And, yeah, little fish, like, eat the dead skin off your feet. That's not okay.
No, and, within the past, 6 months, there was an article about a woman who got that, and then she got some, major infection because of the fish.
Oh, gross. Like, I have too much of an imagination. I would be thinking about piranha.
Yeah.
And, it's so, piranha, that's scary, too, to think about, you're just swimming along, and then, unlike a shark, where it's, one big bite, which is not okay either, but, the idea that it's, all these little bites, like you were saying, them nipping at your bows of your swimsuit, ooh.
And so, okay, the guy's mangled feet and legs. I love this gore. Like you were saying, I love it.
Oh, and that's what I mean by... It was, like I said, as a child, I was I remember just smiling and being and then feeling oh, maybe I'm not supposed to feel this way. Maybe you're not supposed to like gore. Clearly, I got over that. But this movie has some great gore in it.
It does. And I kept feeling like it was like Jaws, but on a smaller scale, obviously, but also more realistic because of where we live. Yeah. And And I felt like it was not as slow paced as Jaws.
Exactly. And like I said, I like a little cheekiness, and it had cheekiness, and like I love just sort of the back and forth between her and the guy, and like I believe like they're having some conversation, and then like he's like, oh, he says something, and she's like, yeah, I've like been trying to sort of like hint to you that I like you, this, like I'm trying to get closer to you, you idiot. So there's just like a lot of cute things like that sort of made me like the characters. And I mean, it's a movie called Piranha. Like, they could just go ahead and like have a bunch of teenagers in it that are up to trouble or whatever, but they actually like gave me some characters I actually felt invested in.
I think that all of the fish at the piranha attacks were adorable. Maybe they don't want me to feel like it's adorable, but I was like, oh, I love this movie.
Yeah, no, see, exactly. I mean, so, and something that they went for in this movie that they don't always go for. I mean, some kids got fucked up in this movie. They were like, we don't care, they're kids. Like,
they actually showed people like of all types getting attacked.
yeah, it was like one kid died. They didn't like show that particular, thing, but being kids were coming out all bloody, and I was like, wow, like, and I loved that. That was a great scene where his daughter got to kind of like who didn't like to swim, and there was that whole storyline too, and it kind of made me think of you because I know you aren't the biggest water person, and I was like, it used to be back in that day, it was like you just forced kids to do things, and it's like, I don't know. I don't think we do that anymore, right?
I hope not. I literally wrote down, I'm the girl hiding out so she doesn't have to be part of the tube race.
Yeah.
There's a part where there's a dartboard with a guy's picture on it. If you remember, it was like, I don't know, a coworker or something. But it reminded me of our very first Christmas as friends. You got me a dartboard with pictures of Diana Fowley on it.
Oh, I don't remember that.
But that's, if you have watched The X-Files, you'll know it was my least favorite character. And so thank you, Meg.
Oh, you're so welcome. What a nice gift giver I am.
Then I also wrote down, they're pumping chemicals into the river. And I was like, maybe it's the 70s or I'm just naive. Like, things like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I love, they just went straight for, they're like, this is going to be about, like, environmentalism and, like, and of course, like, the little town, wasn't the little town having a festival or something?
Yes, and it was the same theme of the town or someone in charge not wanting to reveal the truth because they don't want to ruin this thing and the tourism.
Yeah, that's a very familiar trope in these creature movies of, like, all of a sudden they're taking over the town where it's like, no, there's a festival and it's more important. And I think it was like a resort opening or something. So, but yeah, and then it's already a female-driven movie. But then we also have the Black Sunday actress come in, and she actually gets to be like have some insight and be part of it. And it's funny. We're grasping at straws, but in the late 70s, you didn't always get that. Yeah.
There's a prison escape in this movie.
I love that. Well, that was somebody they knock out and leave.
Yeah. And then there's an archery segment, and I love archery. I took it as like one of my Phi Ed classes in college. So anytime there's archery in any sort of movie, I love it.
I didn't know that you liked it. So you must like it in Friday the 13th. There's some good archery scene, right?
Yes, and it's in Riverdale right now. And there's, of course, Katniss and Hunger Games, and
You should get more. You should get into it. You need to do that as a hobby.
Gina Davis did later in life, and she was almost in the Olympics.
She's Gina fucking Davis.
I wrote down, I cannot believe that how they show the kids getting attacked.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of movies do, like, well, we're going to imply that the kid got killed, but we're not going to show it. But they actually showed it.
No, they showed it. They're like, we don't care. We don't care at all. And once a movie shows you that, you're like, okay, things are going to go down. Like, that always for me is like a marker of, like, we've put on our gloves. Like, this is happening. So I thought it was kind of cool that they just went for it, especially because there is this like cheekiness to this movie. So it was quite a stark contrast, which I kind of love. I've always sort of loved the really extreme cheekiness with like actual really good horror.
Yeah, it's shocking and it works. I love the wild driving sequences when they're driving and they're just like zipping around corners. It's hilarious.
Yes. And she's just so delightful. Like, she's just always sort of like in everything, like, and with like Prison Escape, like he's just like, well, I guess we're stuck in here. And just the way she drives is the way she sort of conducts her life, where she's just like, I'm gonna just like take this toilet tank off and like hit somebody with it and it'll be fine.
Oh, okay. There was a woman reading Moby Dick on the beach. Like they just put in those things.
I noticed that too. It was a little, yeah, yeah.
They're not afraid to be funny. And there was also a Jaws arcade game in the arcade. Like, they're just out there.
Eagle Eye, I didn't see that. Very cool.
But the way that everyone has to be saved is someone, I think it's the guy, has to swim underwater and save everybody. If that was me, if I had to do that, everybody would be doomed. Like, we would be dead because I couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's right. He has to go under for a long time. Have you seen The Poseidon Adventure?
Of course. We both love that movie.
Yeah, because that's what I think of is when they have, I remember, like, that's always stuck in my brain of, like, you have to go from here to here and not breathe for, like, 3 to 4 minutes or something. Like, how is that even possible? And yeah, he goes and he gets, and it kind of has like an abrupt ending because he goes down there and he does get attacked by piranha, and then he comes up and he's alive still, but he's kind of messed up. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to think I could go down there and do that, but I don't really think I could.
No, I just couldn't. I'm not good to begin with, but definitely not for a period of time where I'd have to hold my breath because I feel like I would panic.
Yeah, I mean, the panic would be real. I'd like to think that if my children were involved, it'd be kind of like that
fight or flight.
Yeah, that thing where they say, like, moms can pick up cars or something. Like, maybe I would find the strength if I was need to save my children. But if it was just, like, Luke, I mean, he's fucked.
I always, when I watch movies, like, where they have to do stuff like that, I always, like, try to hold my breath along with them. I mean, when I've seen the movie before and I know it's coming, like in Titanic, when they have to do some underwater stuff, but I can never hold it long enough.
Funny. Yeah, no, don't pass out.
Yeah, you'll just see me on the floor one day. She must have been watching an underwater movie.
Yeah, the credits for Titanic are rolling and you're dead.
That's hilarious. It's like a murder mystery. It's like one of those riddles.
It's like the ice pick melted.
She was trying to hold her breath. It's just so silly. Okay, so how do you feel about seafood? Like, we're talking about these animals attacking us and we wouldn't like it, but do you like seafood?
A lot, yes. I'll eat them.
She doesn't care.
No, I love all the seafood. I mean, I'm trying to think of a seafood I don't like.
You haven't met one you didn't like?
Not really. I'll eat. I love salmon, shrimp, lobster.
You sound like the Bubba Gump.
Yeah. Let me list all the ways I like shrimp.
What's that guy's name? Is
Bubba.
that Bubba?
It's Bubba.
I was thinking that I was calling the movie Bubba Gump, and that's why I got confused.
It's Forrest Gump, and then it's Bubba Gump's restaurant, which is really good.
Oh my God! You can broil it and fry it.
Yeah, it's true though. Coconut shrimp.
So my seafood story, which I have told, I'm sure, is that my dad is allergic to seafood, so we never had it growing up, and I just never acquired a taste for it, and I've tried very little seafood, so, maybe I'm missing out, but.
I watched my mom try shrimp for the first time, like, this year. She's in her 70s. She's never had shrimp before, and it was quite an adventure to watch her try it.
So did she like it?
No.
Oh. See, that's something that I've tried shrimp, and, like, the texture, it's like rubber.
I understand. I get it. But I feel like I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't eat a ton of meat, but I feel less guilty, like, eating seafood because they're dumb and ugly.
We know you're, like, how you view the world now.
Yeah. This all goes back to the Donner Party of who I would choose to eat first, the dumb and ugly ones.
You'd pick the most beautiful tattoo to eat.
Yeah.
So let's rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. And we have to pick a scale. My favorite image from this movie is the little piranha peeking around the corner.
It's so cheesy.
So can we...
Like, I just wasn't expecting it, so when it came, I'm just like, what is happening?
So picture a little piranha puppet, like, peeking around a corner.
Like little legs, because it was like an experimental piranha. It was so cute.
I freaking love this movie. Okay, so 0 to 10. How many peeking piranhas do you give it?
I had a blast watching it. It's female driven. It's cheeky. It had good gore. I'm gonna give it 8.5 peeking around, and I'll eat the other half.
Of course you will. So I am doing my immediate reaction. I ranked it as a 7, but I feel like I enjoyed it more than that. But I guess I'm knocking it for I don't know what. But
It's pure 70s. I mean, it's that puppet was bad.
but I loved it. At the same time, I loved it. And Joe Dante, you know what? You do horror comedy right, my good man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I say this all the time, but like we can have comedy and horror, and it can still have some great gore and stuff in it. Like we can have those two things married together, and it's like PB&J. It's perfect.
Now you said the remake of Piranha has Adam Scott.
Yeah, have you seen it?
No, is that where that famous like he's riding the water ski like picture comes from? I mean jet ski, not water ski.
Yeah. So Parks and Recreation was on it at the time, and I didn't know that I had like any sort of feeling toward Adam Scott. And then I rented Piranha, which also is actually, I would recommend it. It's cheeky and it's even cheekier, and it is gory. It is very gory. So it's kind of fun. But when the credits started and it said Adam Scott, I had like a physical reaction where I was like, whoa! And I was like, wait, I think I like him. It was like, like I realized I had a crush on him right then.
That's funny. So is he shirtless in it or anything?
I don't know about shirtless, but he's
not like your shirtless kind of crush though.
No. It's not like he's gonna be like lifting weights or anything. He's like my dorky man crush because you guys know I love dorks.
The Jack Russell's like, does that mean me?
Yeah, he's on me right now, pawing at me. Dorks, yay! Yeah, I mean it's like how I figured out when we rewatched Scream. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I might be in love with Dewey.
I don't even know what to say about that, but I mean, I get it, but I don't.
I understand. It's her own.
It reminds me though because we are Riverdale fans, and like KJ Apa doesn't have a shirt on like this entire season. He plays Archie, and like we read some quote about him being like, I don't like to be a sex symbol, but it's like you're shirtless in every episode. Not that that's his choice, but
I mean, I think he's fine being a sex symbol, right?
I mean, he's getting the paychecks.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
We hope wherever you're swimming this week, if you're swimming, that you don't get attacked by piranhas or any sort of sea creature.
Or if you do, it's those little cute little piranha puppets. So they're like peeking around the corner at you. What if you saw that in real life?
That it would be so cute.
Until it bites your fucking leg off.
Yeah. Until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.